Let's talk about this. You know a whole lot about trade. You know about foreign policy. You know about international relations. The president is telling us deal making is in the works. We have not seen anything yet. And deal making takes a long time.
Yeah, look, this is so important that when you strip away all the headlines, this stuff is not going to work, and it's going to hurt regular people. And the bottom line is, in area after area, we have to come in and say that. So is your 401k better or worse off than it was 4 months ago? That's it. That's it. And if it's worse, you know, that's our argument. How's it working? How's it going? And then in the meantime, to contain as much damage as we can, because real people are getting hurt every day. People work for me for USAID. Great Americans doing their jobs, fired summarily, disrespectfully, hurting ordinary people who do great work, who feed hungry kids. So people are getting hurt and there's real damage. But where we will find our voice is when people realize these things are not working. They're hurting the economy. They're hurting our country. And look no further than tariffs and the stock market. And that's, I think, at the end of the day, how this administration will be judged. Is it working or not for folks? Because the rest of this stuff is honestly not what people care about.
Let's stay on these tariffs, because Wall Street sources are sort of holding their breath, saying Scott Bessent, he's going to be our great savior in the White House. Keep him close to Trump. Keep Peter Navarro far, far away. You have launched businesses. You've launched them here at NBC. The president is telling us all this deal making is happening right in front of our eyes, but the clock is ticking. And while the clock is ticking, big businesses and small businesses are suffering. And obviously, so is the markets.
Absolutely. There's no good that comes from this. He's totally lost whatever political instincts he had. He arguably won the election on the issue of prices and inflation. And if there's one thing these tariffs are going to do, it's going to drive inflation. And he stepped right into it in a way that it evaporated all kinds of wealth. It strained the financial system. It is something that there is no near-term recovery from. And I think that whether he has a few deals or doesn't have a few deals with China, this is going to go on for a while. And that aspect of it alone is going to be hugely inflationary.
Mark, the White House and the president's supporters would argue he is trying to shake up the system and shake up the status quo. Are there any green shoots, silver linings, where you think progress will come as a result of all this? Is there a long-term gain that you see? Because the White House keeps talking about a long-term gain, but right now, people can't seem to see it.
Well, I'm less sanguine that what he's doing is so bananas. Like, it may be economically bananas. Like, we may see the economy fall into a recession at his behest. But his basic message, his core appeal, is that he is against all the rules that people in our world, the cosmopolitans of the world, have wanted to embrace for 20, 30 years. And he's breaking them left, right, and center, whether it's the guy in El Salvador, whether it's tariffs, whether we're sharing information about defense operations on Signal. He's breaking the rules. And there's a whole portion of the country that feels as if the rules are fundamentally broken against them.
Okay, but there are some. We could say that we're overregulated. We could say that Democrats want to protect so many groups and so many people that stands in the way of progress. But the rules that we're seeing broken right now, right? If you've got a defense secretary sharing military secrets on a group chat, if you've got an administration that's ignoring the rule of law, these aren't little rules. These aren't regulations that say, well, you shouldn't have to get an extra certification to become a tattoo artist in multiple states. Yeah. These are the regulations. These are the rules that stand our country up.
Agreed. And it's a disaster, but it's on us as progressives and as Democrats to prove to the country that we've got a set of rules that are going to work for them. For the last 30 years, these rules that we've embraced and we're continuing to defend haven't worked for whole portions of the country, and people have reacted against it. Our reaction to all of this should be, we're going to build rules that do work for you. And that's not what I'm hearing from a lot of Democrats.
Well, there's one sitting next to me. What do you think?
No, I actually agree with a lot of what Mark is saying, meaning we can't just be out there saying, hey, everything's great, don't touch it. These guys are changing things the country wants change. We cannot be the party saying leave it alone. So the trick, it seems to me, is when Donald Trump decides he wants to do brain surgery, we're like, you're supposed to know what you're doing. Or when he wants to fly a plane, we're like, we got rules for that we actually all like and care, and you're going to get somebody killed. That's the signal thing when you got an active military operation and you got pilots in the air and American servicemen whose families want them safe. You don't put it on a phone that you wouldn't be allowed in a secure space with to begin with. But the point is that we must not be the guardians of a status quo that people hate. But I do think when things start going bump and when things start breaking, people are getting hurt. And that is the issue with tariffs. That is the issue with the economy. They got everybody's attention really fast. They know that's self-inflicted. They know they're out there doing it. But sure, we should be out there saying, listen, we know a lot of your communities were screwed by, the wonders of globalization and free trade. And we got a plan for that. Or we agree with the premise that there's a problem. But how's the solution working for you? Maybe we got one that's better.
Okay, Judy, you're a master communicator. Everything I hear, I hear what Sean is saying. But the thing is, I'm not saying Joe Biden was new or snazzy.
Right.
But he wasn't a defender of the status quo. And the way people keep viewing Democrats, you're just standing up defending the status quo. I'm thinking about the CHIPS Act. I'm thinking about the Inflation Reduction Act. I'm thinking about all the infrastructure that was passed. Those were huge, once-in-a-lifetime legislative changes. And it's like Democrats don't get any credit for it.
Also, human rights equality has changed. We have done an incredible job. And you're talking about the last 30 years. I'm worried about the Constitution. I'm worried about the last 200 years that we're going to have a 3-term president, birthright citizenship. All of this, I think, is really triggering the Democrats. I mean, look, you guys are really, you know a lot about the tariffs, and I read and read and read, and
You wrote notes.
I wrote a note about, that we have temporary layoffs now. Good times. Easy credit ripoffs. Good times. Scratching innocent. This is the Good Times theme song from.
Wait. That's the
temporary layoffs. Good times.
Wait, that's the actual lyrics
Easy
to the
credit
I actually know that
ripoffs.
show. That's how old I am.
Good times.
Oh, my
Scratching
God.
and surviving.
Good times. Yes.
We love you. We got them. But I read temporary layoffs and I thought of Good Times. There's people who live in a project, and it's the same stuff from the 70s, and I just, all of this just, I think, recycles. I'm so worried about the Constitution, like our country. It makes me so scared.
What he's really going to recycle is stagflation. And if there is one thing that I think is really going to take Donald Trump down, particularly among the 20% who hated voting for either Harris or Trump and ultimately broke just slightly for Trump, there is nothing like a pocketbook issue that will hit home to have high prices and a stagnant recessionary economy. And that is what we're heading for.
But is there something that's going to snap the president out of this, right? It was 5 years ago this week. Okay, I hosted a TV special, Small Business in Crisis, and it was how small businesses were being completely strangled and destroyed by COVID. And the government stepped in and did all they could to help them. And now here we are, those same small businesses that we're talking to are in a worse situation than they were in 5 years ago, right? A toy store on the Upper West Side is ready for their prices to go up 100%. Mm-hmm. And they're saying, we thought we were shutting our doors 5 years ago, and now the government isn't going to come save us. The government created this. So is there something that is going to get Donald Trump, right, this idea? Maybe Scott Bessent will convince him. Maybe Howard Lutnick will change his tune. No. Is there something that will get Trump to say basta?
I am beginning to think, other than the bond market being roiled again in a really significant way, his exit ramp here is the Supreme Court. I really think the Supreme Court may find that he did not have the legal authority that he claims to do this with tariffs. The statute that he has said authorizes him to do this doesn't even mention tariffs. And I think that might be the only exit ramp he has. And otherwise, I don't think he is able to reverse course on this without swallowing everything he's always stood for in terms of economic policy, which I don't think he's capable of.
I think the tangent point between the substance and caring about things as passionately as Judy does, and I do too, but that tangent point between the substance and the politics is when things are bad and we've got a better idea. And it takes a lot of disapproval of Trump before somebody says, I wish I had voted for you guys. In fact, a lot of the people right now who are angry with Trump are not saying, gee, I wish I had voted for Kamala Harris, or gee, I think like the Democrats are great. They just hate us more. And so when there is an opening, though, what you do is you say, how's it going? And if you're not happy with this because it's dumb, we've got a common sense solution. We can mend it, not end it. We can fix what's making you angry. But we have to get serious, it seems to me, about changing big things. Because if we don't have any plan to really crack down on illegal immigration or violent gangs, we cannot just be saying, we're sorry you deported somebody without due process. You got to say it's right to care about violent gangs and about people getting hurt by people who have no right to be here, and we got a plan for that. But they're doing it the wrong way. Same with trade. Same with is your community hurt in this global economy? So you got to fill that void with some substance. But the listening comes when people are getting hurt and it's not working.
But the Democrats are hating the Democrats, too. And that's...
We're good at that. Yeah.
They are. I mean, they're all talking about, this is not my party. This is not my... They're not saying...
But maybe that's growing pains. Maybe that's how you find your new lane, right? As opposed to Republicans who are quietly standing in line behind President Trump, and half the Republicans out there are happy to get on the phone with you and tell you what they really think, but then say, thank you, sir, you are the greatest, and I love your haircut.